Okay, that might be me. Whoa. Nice.
Good thing you're here. I have to go to the potty, but I can't because there are monsters in my room. Can you use your wand to make them go away?
Let's try it.
Check under the bed.
Let's see.
Left hand is funny.
Oh, up. Whoa. Those.
You might want to do some
Ah,
magic.
there you go. Ooh. Alright, where to now? I'm not sure when to open this. Whoa. Right. Oh. Alright, coast is clear. Alright. Just a little. Let's check. Kind of tempo. Although, it's not fair. It's not fair.
Do it.
Can you open the door?
Other hand, buddy.
Whoa.
Jeez, we just tried this.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's holding it in. All right, I think, are we clear?
Wait, that kid doesn't think so.
Thank you for your help, fairy godmother.
You're welcome. I'm not too sure I would be that calm about this.
You're good.
You're good.
All right.
All right, so you guys made some big changes from interim.
Yeah,
Same basic theme. Little boy needs to go to the bathroom. His room is full of monsters. But you shifted the story in one big way that caught me off guard a little bit, which is I am no longer a parent. I am a fairy godmother. And when little boy said that, I was definitely like thrown off balance. And then you did something that really helped sell it, which is sort of like the hands appeared like with this glow of blue, and you gave me a wand. And like it was weird. Like that was all that changed. But all of a sudden, like I was like, oh yeah, like I am the fairy godmother here. And it's just sort of like a good little thing to sort of feel that just saying it, like that audio, it didn't connect to me. Because is the boy talking to me? Is there someone else? All that stuff. But as soon as you gave me something that was part of me, like these hands are me in the virtual world. As soon as you did that, all of a sudden I was that character. So like the audio sort of set it up, but it was really the hands that sold it to me. And like it was a little weird. Like your world has some weird stuff. The fact that the boy has to go to the bathroom and then uses his fairy godmother to help with that is an unusual use of a fairy godmother. But it turns out to be a sort of a prescient use because like getting to the bathroom is not an easy task in this situation. And it was like another story change you pushed on. Because I think from interim, the big question was the work the guest is doing is sort of kind of revealing the monsters and then like shutting them away, but not resolving them. And you use the fairy godmother role and a magic wand to resolve the monsters. So we had both, and since I was both the agent of fear and the agent of like resolving the fear, I opened up the door to let all the monsters in, which wasn't like made me feel a little guilty about it, but I also had the power to resolve them, and that was sort of nice. It gave nice closure on the problem, and it sort of explained the whole story. The details of the world were really good. Like the world felt really nice.
Did you ever look up?
I don't think I did.
You missed a big thing.
You miss a big thing. If you look up, you will find the monster died and they lit the stars. Yeah, on the ceiling.
Oh,
the wisps would go up and light up the
Interesting.
stars progressing towards the door. And that we got a bunch of really good feedback from everyone who had play tested that up until now when you never looked up.
It's getting people to look around in VR is surprisingly hard.
And getting anyone to ever look at a ceiling is actually is kind of hard. There's architects often talk about this, how things on a ceiling are largely invisible. There's a lot of magicians who do tricks that way. They'll hide things on a ceiling, and no one ever sees them because we just generally don't look at ceilings.
Yeah, no. My house has a huge hole in the ceiling, and no one ever notices it. I know where it is, but it's interesting to know. Like you did some nice subtle things. Like I think the wisp actually did rise up, but in my brain that was just them resolving themselves. It wasn't them going on to something else. But also your world did not depend on it, which is nice too. Like when your world depends on the guest looking somewhere, and you are like. All you're really doing is like crossing your fingers and hoping and like that they will do it. That's a different situation than there's a nice little bonus up there. So thinking hard about where the guest is looking and how to get them to look there is an important thing.
Yeah, so basically what happened is we ultimately removed that light switch interaction, and instead these monsters ultimately become the light that glows in the dark from the sky. So that was eventually showing the progress of the world.
And you did seem to notice that what the things we needed you to look at were very well lit with the green outlines. So
No, I was confident that I could navigate the world and that you would sort of show me where things were. I think at some point it was pointed out that the left hand interacted with stuff, the right hand was the wand, and it wasn't super clear. There was time, I think, and one of the things that set me up in the wrong direction was, I believe, use your wand to like deal with the monsters. But the first thing you have me do is look under the bed, and then on top of that, the interaction for under the bed is a lifting up, and I expected like was it a drawer or something like that? So you kind of used the most confusing interaction as your first one, and that would be another thing to sort of like look back at is making it clear to the guest that I've got two things to do. And one is implicit, which is I am revealing the monsters. The other one is much more explicit, which is I am tapping them to go away. And the fact that you told me to use the wand, I knew I had a tool here. And so it wasn't a big leap for me to be like, okay, like I know I didn't use the wand to open up the bed, but these monster eyeballs appeared. I've got to use the wand to do that. So like I made that connection really easily because you told me to use the wand, but also I had a wand as a tool. But the opening up the spaces took a little bit more. One, I knew from interim that that's what your world did, but it was that connection was a little hard for me to get. But that said, like the details of the world were really nice. The eyeballs were really menacing, and the animation and the use of the boy was really good. Like you did a good job with like the pacing of like when the eyeballs are out, the boy is terrified. Believe he has a meter above his head, like which took me a second to like register as like what that is. I really don't know what it was. My brain was like, oh, it's his fear meter, but I'm guessing because it was yellow that it might have been like his ability to hold in having to go to the bathroom. But it never really became like its purpose in the world. I never really used it. Because I never really used it, I never needed it to have a meaning. So for me, it was relatively superfluous. What happens with that? Like,
Yeah, so basically what happens is you were at one point tempted to let them go to the boy. So when they come really close to the boy, that meter was like reducing slowly in size. But then when the eyeballs get really close to the boy, it reduces super fast, and like that's a fail state right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like that feedback was very subtle. Like there was no like, oh, this is what it is, like this is what's happening. So I never really picked up on what that was, and I didn't need it. Like For the World was saying the boy cowering and the eyeballs getting slowly closer was enough for me to like want to resolve the world, and the idea that I could do a better job or a worse job, or that there was some other piece of feedback that says it's more dangerous than I thought it was, I wasn't looking for that. And like I was sort of like letting the eyeballs get closer, and I didn't perceive any strong change. And so my sense was, it's taken them a long time to get there. Like it's really not, the world really isn't, this isn't where the world's going with this. But like I said, the eyeballs were like really good. The animation of the boy, like the fact that he sort of had this change where like it was clear, and then like the eyeballs came out again and he was terrified. Just really good, like selling the story and making the world feel like this is a problem that I'm legitimately having. Like I think your choices of like making me a fairy godmother and making me banish the monsters and resolve that just worked really well. And like the ending where he gets to go to the bathroom, like it sort of brings it back to this mundane story of like he has to go to the bathroom. But I felt like I'd sort of earned it, and like I said, it worked really well.
You guys made a lot of really good choices with this. It was an understandable situation. Like Dave talked about, the fairy godmother thing, having the hands, having the wand made you understand who you were, what your role was. I liked it from the very first words of this world. It's telling you who you are. Fairy godmother, I need your help. And Dave's like, I guess that's me, right? and at least you were thinking, well, I guess maybe that's me. And then the hands are like, yeah, this is definitely you. There's no question about it. So that part was great. The hand interaction not being intuitive was definitely less great. The fact that one hand could open things and the other hand couldn't was very confusing, especially given that it was the right hand. And I think you could have fixed that just by having both hands activate, open things up, certainly. The point about the instructions, because I think the instructions are use your wand to get rid of the monsters or whatever, something like that. And one of the things that will be very important for the next assignment in particular are the fact that guests always hear 2 magic words every time you give them a command. Any command you do, they hear 2 magic words at the end. And those 2 words are right now. Okay? So if you say, use the wand to get rid of the monsters, the guest hears right now. Right? And they're like, okay, where are the monsters? Where are the monsters? But no, well, okay, you're going to use the wand to do that. But really, you need to open the drawer with your left hand first, let them escape, and then do that. But the guest is hearing right now, and they're totally confused because they don't know where that is. So remember those magic words. I didn't like the life bar. It was because so much of your world was so beautiful and it made so much sense, and the animation on the kid was great. And then you got this floating yellow rectangle, which was the only fake thing in the world. Maybe the glows were a little fake, but that was the most fake thing. And I don't think you really needed it. I mean, feedback can be a good thing, but for the purpose of this game, we know that having those things get near the kid is bad. So I didn't really need that piece of feedback, and it really stuck out. So I think cutting that would have made sense. Floating eyeballs as monsters is a pretty great idea because it is the simplest way to show you something evil is looking at you, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to, it just like a floating eyeball just kind of floating right at you is terrifying, and it doesn't have to do anything, and the threat is kind of vague, but you know it's not good, right? So I love the elegance and the simplicity of these floating eyeballs, and I definitely love the interaction of you just have to kind of touch them with the wand, and they get out of there. It was a very satisfying interaction. So you guys made a lot of great choices with this.
And one thing was interesting, because I was a fairy godmother, the monsters weren't weird to me. Like, I'm magical and they can be magical, And if I was the parent, me being calm about banishing floating eyeballs would make no sense. But because you put me into a magical space, it was not an issue at all. Like, you gave me a magic wand and I'm tapping floating menacing eyeballs, and like, it wasn't weird at all. And on paper, like, it should be weird, but like, that is a consistency, and it's self-consistent, and it just worked. And I think like it was that's where those choices really play out. And so the thing just to remember is you guys are making all the choices for your world. And when something is weird and is inconsistent, it's because you set up consistency rules that you're breaking. And you guys did a good job of setting up those rules and like letting that consistency work for your world as opposed to against your world. So, good work.